Wait, we're gonna press it before you.
All right, hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the Culturize, the Flavor Wheel event hosted by myself, but joined by 5 other fabulous coffee folks. We've got Erica Jackson, coffee expert extraordinaire. We've got Marissa Childers, another coffee expert. I'm gonna call all of y'all coffee experts. All day, I do not know your last name.
Ade DeYoung.
DeYoung, how's it going? Equatorial coffee expert. We've got Delvin. I do not know your last name.
Stern. I'm Delvin Stern.
Stern, I didn't know that. Equatorial coffee expert. And Corey Cricket, aka KP, coffee expert. Yeah. All right. So let's just hop into this. I thought I'd give just like I'm just gonna give like some coffee notes of like the 5 coffees that we all tasted together, just the ones that kind of stood out to me in a way that is not on the flavor wheel. So like if I tasted something that's on the flavor wheel, I'm not gonna talk about it. But the ones that just really stood out to me was, so for On the Go Joe, we got what was it, Burundi? We got a Burundi from On the Go Joe. And that reminded me of it reminded me one of Earth, Wind and Fire. And it also reminded me of the TV show Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Yeah.
Was it?
What's that?
Which Earth, Wind and Fire song was it?
Yeah, I was trying to remember the song. I was trying these coffees with KP and Erica earlier, and it was in my head, and I don't remember it anymore. I spent like an hour trying to find that song. I gotta look it up again. Damn. All right. Well, while I look for that, I'm gonna go on to the next coffee. Oh, it reminded me of Fresh Prince just because it had like, it wasn't like any coffee I tasted before, but it still had like a classic feel. Like it felt like, I think KP, you said this, like sounds like home. And it did feel kind of like home. And then both Black Gold Creatives coffee, the Misfits, and the coffee we got from Equatorial Coffee Consultants, they remind me of the show Power. Because it was like, there's kind of an edge to the coffee. I felt like it was edging toward darkness, or like a dark roast. And I felt like if someone were to like take a sip of that, like grab my mug and take a sip of it while I'm in like my power chair or whatever, and they'd be like, oh, okay, you like it strong. I'd be like, yeah, you can't handle this power. I would feel like you a real one if you're drinking this. that was the impression I got of that.
That to like meme for you. That whole section that you just said.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Those are really like the main things that popped out to me. What did anything like just really stand out to any of y'all?
The Black Bird one, I tasted Gushers. Like it was like real fruity, and I had a Gushers experience. Took me back to my childhood of wishing that we bought Gushers rather than we happened to trade at the lunch table with people's whose parents did buy Gushers. It's fine.
But wait, KP, you said that was the Black Gold one, the Tanzanian?
The Black Nerd.
Oh, the Black Nerd, the Ethiopian, Tadama. Okay.
Yeah. With the Equatorial one, I just wanted waffles. Like I wanted waffles so bad when I was tasting it, and
like a syrupy type of.
Yeah, like I was like, I need some waffles.
Right.
It took me back to a time when I used to stay out late and drink, and I was like, I can drink this and eat some waffles and be straight.
You need grease.
Yep. Those two that like really stuck out for me. Also the Misfit. I definitely felt like I was like at my grandma's house, and it gave me those vibes. But when you were saying the on the go Joe one, Nikki, with the home thing, I couldn't figure out. I was like writing my notes about it. I couldn't figure out how I felt. All I kept experiencing was a soft blanket. So maybe it was home. Maybe that was it. Um, but those were my experiences. The Gushers was the most fun in my opinion.
Dope. I mean, just hearing anything described as, oh, this makes me want gushers would be my favorite.
Yeah, it was a ride. It was a wild ride.
On the Go Joe was my favorite of the 6 coffees on the table for sure. I do have to state my Burundi bias here because I love coffees from Burundi. Yeah, it was sweet and it wasn't super complex, but it had this very consistent mandarin orange and white grape flavor from hot to cold. And I would describe it as medium light. So maybe that's that blanket feel, because I think it had a very different mouthfeel as well compared to the other 5. So I would say On the Go Joe was a standout on the table for sure.
Okay, I definitely want to say something because we're on the go Joe right now, and I tried 2 of these coffees. With the Ethiopian, I usually don't do this, but I definitely tried them as espressos, and with the on the go Joe, typically with an espresso, I like to, if I'm in a car, if I'm on the road or on the go, I like something that's gonna kind of just smack me and kind of just give me a nice little wake up. That's why I like the espresso. Typically on a longer trip, I might mix it. This one I wouldn't have mixed with anything. I wouldn't have put a Snickers bar in there. I wouldn't have done anything like that. But I mean, I think this definitely did the job. And I tried it out with a friend, and they were like, "Oh, I don't." Everybody doesn't like that smack that sometimes espresso gives you, but I really appreciated that. So I just kind of associate that with being what people would associate with being fruity. So when you say a clementine, I think you said a clementine. I kind of get, I feel that, but it just keeps me going. With the Sadamo, I tried that also. The mouthfeel, I mean, as far as what I'm looking for, I definitely appreciated that. And I don't know, I got a feel in the end. This is something I appreciate, but it's almost like because everybody takes it differently, but I like it. It was almost like a hint of like a barbecue type of feeling. Now this is with an espresso. I mean, and it's I don't know. I just liked it. I just like the way it went down. I like the way it felt, and that's how I distinguished these 2
Which
coffees.
one was that again? The
What's
barbecue.
that?
Which one was the barbecue one?
No, that was like, it was almost like if you're ever on the grill and you use charcoal, it's like there's a certain feel. But that was the Sadamo, excuse me. But that's what I got to feel toward the end. And I also tried it with the Sadamo in a K cup just to try it and see. So when I tried that, I got this sense of I don't remember of a melon. So like it's like watermelon, is it a cantaloupe? But it was like almost like a melon kind of feel that I noticed. So that kind of stood out to me. But yeah, I tried them a couple different ways with the Ethiopian and the on the go, the Burundi. Definitely the first ones that come to mind. There's others, but we can go on.
Okay.
The K cup flex, that's cool. Yeah, for On the Go Joe, I said mandarin orange, but clementine, that's in that same family, which is cool because we're talking about our experiences and how to communicate them, and that communicates the same kind of more mellow citrus note. So we're on the same page there. I typically I drink a lot of Burundi coffees. I have 2 Burundi coffees besides the On the Go Joe one in my home, and they're characteristically like citrus, and I would say specifically the orange citrus. So yeah, That's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Funny that you mentioned barbecue for this demo, because I wrote down when I was like smelling them for cupping, I was like, I don't know. At first, it reminded me of bacon, or like I wanted bacon so badly, like when I was smelling it, and I thought it was pretty funny. I think On the Go Joe was also my favorite. I think it reminded me of summer. And I thought about it and I was like, yo, this would taste really good if it was iced and I would be sitting outside reading a book and like looking out like at, I don't know, at nature or something. And I think it also had like an oat-y kind of aftertaste, at least when I was trying it. I don't know, it was really interesting because I had like the berries and then at the end it was like, oh, this has like a different like mouthfeel, but then it also tasted kind of like oat like, I guess. Um, and then for the equatorial coffee, I really liked it too. I think when I smelled it and then when I tasted it, it was like two different experiences. I feel like when I was like smelling it, I got a lot of like earthiness and like fish sauce was something that came to my mind. And like umami-ness from like fish sauce and soy sauce and like peanut buttery, but not like a really like natural one. It reminded me of like I don't know, like a noodle dish that I've had, but I can't like put my finger on it. And then tasting it like after, I was like, well, this is so different, because then I got like a salinity, like a salty, sweet, like bright kind of thingy. But it was like, it reminded me definitely of, I can also relate with the going out and drinking, but like maybe the drinking part. And I liked that a lot. I was like, whoa, this is so fun. And then for the mug jugs one, I know that it was like a flavored coffee, but it was super fascinating because it reminded me so heavily of like, well, first of all, I had to put it off to the side when I was tasting it because you could smell it from like so far away. And I was like, whoa. But then it smelled, or like it tasted, and it just reminded me of one, like some of my first coffee experiences when I was younger, and like putting like flavored things into the coffee, but then also like going to like, there's a diner down here called like Marietta Diner. They serve these big booty pieces of cake, and you would sit there and like you would eat them. Like I would eat them with my friends and we would go, and that was always fun. And then I was tasting it with my boyfriend, and he said, or he was like, this tastes like Kool-Aid and vanilla. Like he's like, it tastes like the red dye that you know, and then vanilla, and that's what we got from it.
It's an interesting combo.
Yeah, I will say, just to go to the red velvet, that it just tastes like a cup of dessert, straight up. Like it's like, yeah, like a cake or Kool-Aid. Like it was just sweet. The smell, I had to do that one first because the smell was just so strong. I was like, okay, I have to get this one first. Like this smells too good. So that was my first one, and I agree. It just smelled like a lot, and tastes like a lot of dessert. And like, you know, I put sugar and cream in my coffee. You know, so I like my coffee like that. So I love that. So I'm a big fan of the flavor coffee, by the way. In regards to the On the Go Joe, you know, shout out to the ladies. The Burundi was good. I kind of compared the Burundi and the Rwandan, and you know, our Rwandan. I think in that part of the world, also with Congo, like I group them all together for some reason, and I think they all it's funny you mentioned the earth, wind, and fire, because I think that the Burundi and the Rwandan have this earthy type of taste to it, but they also there's also the citrus that comes out of it. And so with the Burundi, it kind of reminds me of Folgers a little bit, like what I grew up on with my mom. Like, so I got that kind of feel, like chocolate a little bit, but just like a regular cup of coffee that I've been used to. Nothing crazy. You know, when you get into the specialty coffee, you taste all these wild flavors and all that, I guess, you know. It's kind of like teas a little bit, but here it just brought me right back home. Now, the difference between the Burundi and the Rwandan, I felt like the Rwandan was a bit more fruitier than the Burundi. Almost more tea-like in that sense, but still had the little earthy chocolate feel to it. Shout out to the Misfits too, man. That the Tanzanian, I'm a big fan of Tanzanian coffee as well. And I think it was a pea berry, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that. It's just like, yeah, that was just a lot of fruitiness and more almost like more tea. You know, it's weird because when I drink coffee, I don't anticipate tasting fruit. I don't correlate the two. And I think that's because I just like the whole chocolate type of vibe a little bit better.
Yeah.
But tasting that, it was just very good. And I think, like I said, I like to put sugar in my stuff and cinnamon. So those two is what I enjoyed. So that's my synopsis of those coffees. But I thought they were all good. But yeah, on the go, Joe. And I say Tanzanian, the Misfits was probably my two favorite. And then the outlier to me was the flavored coffee because the flavor just got me. So I can't even really compare the two, but they just got me. So I enjoyed that as well.
Yeah.
That Muggs drug stayed so consistent from the grinds. When I smelled the ground, I was like, okay, this stands out. And then when we brewed it up, it was still there. And I got in the car and I drove and I smelled it. I was like, I still smell this is pretty consistent. When I tasted it, it was pretty consistent throughout. So yeah, that one definitely stood out with me too.
Okay.
But there were a couple.
Yeah, and that one would have been the TV show matchup for me in Living Color because there's a lot going on in there. Yeah. And the song that I was trying to think of that On the Go Joe made me think, like get stuck in my head was Gotta Get You Into My Life, Earth, Wind, Fire. Yeah. Got to get you in. There's just this one like 5 notes I kept like trying to sing to KP and Erica, like, tell me what song this is.
I didn't know. But I feel that though.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the Red Velvet one was it was a conversation topic in this home because Taryn was like, yo, I want some of that church cake brew. Because he just kept saying it was church cake. It tasted like church cake. And I was like, whatever. I was like, he just kept on drinking it. So it was a big hit for him.
Okay. All right. So speaking of the flavored coffee, I wanted to talk about like Delvin, especially you've talked about like the inclusion of flavored coffees when it comes to like discussing how we talk about flavor in our coffee. Like, so like when we talk about adding culture to the flavor wheel and making it the way that like we talk about and the way that we talk about coffee characteristics and making it more inviting, palatable to everyone, to like the everyday coffee drinker. In that discussion, do we need to talk about all coffees, flavored coffees, non-specialty coffees, whatever, or is it better or easier just to stick to specialty coffees? What do y'all think?
I don't know. But what I will say is that I think culturally we all have a different palate, you know, whether it comes to Black, Asians, Hispanics, whites, whatever the Europeans, whatever the case may be, everyone has their different cultural palate. And so when I'm tasting a coffee and I'm amongst my people, then I could compare it to something that I know that we may all relate to, or that I just feel comfortable saying and someone would understand, right? So, so for me, I think I just don't. I think every culture and every body who tastes coffee will have a different perspective coming from their own perspective, from where they, you know, how they grew up, or who they are, so and what they've tasted. So it's and I think that right now the industry may seem to kind of pigeonhole us into what the flavor wheel should be or what we should say it tastes like. So like I'm tasting something and then I'm looking at the flavor wheel like, oh, is it here or here or here? Like, is it this? Instead of going with what my instincts and my gut or my palate says. And I think we should just get more into that. And I know for myself, like I mentioned, if I consume a drink, like I'm gonna have to like it. Like I was talking to Ade earlier this morning about this. Like I don't mess with tomato juice, right? Like I just don't drink it. Like so, you won't find me drinking a V8. You won't find me drinking a Bloody Mary. I just don't like it. I won't have Kool-Aid without sugar, like that, because I don't like the way it tastes. So I'm gonna put things in my coffee, my tea, my Kool-Aid, whatever, to make it taste the way I want it to taste, so I can consume it and drink it. And I think what happens is that in coffee, a lot of people like to drink it black because that's what you're supposed to do. But do you really like to drink it like that? I can get accustomed to drinking it. Obviously, when we cup, we're all coffee professionals. So when we cup and things of that nature, like I'm always drinking. I don't put cream and sugar when I cup. But, if I'm enjoying a cup of coffee, then I'm going to use it and taste it or prepare it the way I like it. And so I feel like culturally, like we all do that and we all describe the coffee in our way. And I think some of us don't really do the true meaning. And I love hearing like the music references and like the blanket references, because that's so new to me. Like, you go to these cuppings and then they have all these fancy words and it has stone fruit or whatever the case may be. And people are throwing all these descriptives out. And it's never about how you really feel, And I think that's what's important in coffee is like we all drink coffee because it makes us feel a certain way. And we enjoy it. Either we like Ade said, he needs that slap in the face or that joke. So that's why he drinks it in an espresso, I'm more of a drip guy. Like I don't need the joke. I just need to kind of gradually wake me up. So I need a lot of it and I need it to be sweet, so I can drink it when it gets cold, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know if I answered your question, my bad, but yes, I just felt like with that question, that's the answer that I wanted to give.
Yeah, any answer is the right answer.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so how do you guys feel about the whole cultural thing and the whole flavor wheel thing? Like, I don't know. I just feel like I think everybody's different culturally, and I think we all have to use a different flavor wheel. I don't think anyone can just use one particular flavor wheel. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, when I look at, go ahead, Katie.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, before like entering into specialty coffee, I didn't even know that a flavor wheel existed. Like, I didn't know that was a thing. And so I remember the first time I saw a flavor wheel, I got really excited because I was like, oh, like it's super colorful, which I've always described what I taste in color. And I was able to use that as my way of like, oh, well, when I said that this tasted pink and y'all told me I was crazy, no, like, look, that's the color for all the words that you were saying. So it kind of like gave me, like, it backed me up in a way. But like, in terms of like, I often wonder, like, if people actually even know that there is a flavor wheel, like, unless they're integrated into this subculture of specialty coffee and everything, because I had zero clue. And I know, like, even if I talk with like some of my friends that they just like enjoy coffee or tea or whatever, I've mentioned flavor wheel before and they're like, yo, like, what is that? Like, what's that? Like, it's a new conversation to have. So I think, like, it's just, I don't really think it's that well known. Like, at least it was never for me. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were about to say something, Erica.
Yeah, but you're next, so you go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I look at the flavor wheel, it was really helpful for me when I was trying to talk to other coffee professionals, like in the beginning when I was, and say it another way, when I was trying to fit in and speak their lingo and understand them and then have them understand me, looking at the flavor wheel was really helpful. But it didn't make me feel included. So I don't have anything against the flavor wheel as it is. But in so many of like the conversations I've been a part of, when they're solely focused around just what's on the flavor wheel or just kind of these hard set like words, like here's how you describe coffee, like has to be in this, if the word you're trying to find isn't in this like range, then the people in the conversations I was a part of like aren't going to understand you, or they're going to write you off because you don't know all the right words to use. That's kind of how I've felt about that. So yeah, just kind of allowing people to describe what they're experiencing, what they're tasting, however they want, has become a big thing for me, because I've had to like allow that for myself. I allowed myself to do that before anyone else did. And so it would have been like really helpful for me before that if someone else had told me, like, yeah, here's like a guideline that might be helpful if you're stuck, but also, you can explore the range of your own feelings, your own taste buds to describe this. So yeah, just kind of opening things up in the coffee professional world is important for me. And as far as like including like all the coffees in that conversation, I mean, I had a different stance before, but actually it was after hearing you talk about it, Delvin, like a few weeks ago, that I changed my mind. And I was like, okay, I think that probably all coffees should be included, like when we talk about inclusion, because, some like, I got people who like the non-specialty coffees, the coffees that taste like just like coffee, like they can't really tell any other flavors. Or like my mom, she likes to pick cream and sugar in her coffee, and so like the flavored coffees really work well for her. So like if I was talking to just like my mom, for instance, it would not make her feel included if I was only talking about specialty coffees with her, because I mean, sometimes you can't really tell the difference between one or the other, which is fine. But if I give her like a specialty coffee I like plus, a flavor coffee, like I'm definitely going to give her this red velvet coffee. She's going to like that. Like she'll be able to like, I like this about this coffee. I like this about this coffee. Like there won't be any sense of, well, shit, I don't know like what to say, like I don't, because like last time I tried coffees with her, I felt like maybe she thought she was disappointing me that she couldn't tell the difference between the coffees I shared with her. It's like, no, mom, it's cool. I just need to give you more variety of coffees, not just these like, ooh, grade 95 or whatever coffees.
You got them 95s? Where they at? And let me get
I don't know why I said 95.
I told you she got a whole table full of gifts over there. She need to share them.
She got the stacks of 95s over there. We need to get some. Yeah, Delvin, I'm ready for you to make this new cupping protocol with cream and sugar in it. That would be cool. Pull up with the cream and sugar, man. No, but yeah. So when I think of this topic, of accessibility and cupping and the flavor wheel, flavors are cultural. And if a select group of people made this one tool, then it doesn't include all of the flavor perceptions that are out there, right? So also my question would be, are all producers using this flavor wheel? Probably not. And there's producers out there who haven't even tasted their own coffees. So, we have developed this tool specifically for us to be able to communicate the experience that we're having, and the experience within the specialty industry is it's calibrated. It is very narrow. So when people come together to cup, to talk about a coffee, to enjoy coffee together, can there be an understanding of palate difference, of culture difference, of language difference? And I think there can be, and there should be. There's also, when I think of this, I think of quality control. I think about green coffee buying. I think about roasting. And this is why this tool exists, because it's not inclusive. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to streamline everyone's flavor experience. So if we put this tool in its place, I think it can be useful, but also we're not educating or helping everyone be calibrated to this tool. So like KP's like, bro, I didn't even know a flavor wheel existed, like that's so valid. And especially, as a consumer, I think majority of consumers don't know that it exists. So yeah, the next thing that comes to my mind is within that realm of green coffee buying and quality control, research and development. We, and when I say we, I mean like Black and brown people and women, we are not usually the people doing that thing. So since we're not the green coffee buyers, we're not the roasters, we're not the quality control people, we're not the educators, that means we're not setting the cupping table. We're not the people setting the standard for what this experience should be like or can be like. And so I think a good step in culturalizing the flavor wheel is to have Black people, brown people, women, people who we exclude, other marginalized identities. We need to have those people in those positions of green coffee buyer, roaster, quality control, educator, etc. So that's my 2 cents.
Word.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Allowing, I guess at that point, it would be like vertical mobility in a lot of ways. And then allowing people to take up those roles that aren't normally given. I think that there's so much gatekeeping within the coffee industry when it comes to, I guess specifically specialty coffee industry, when it comes to specialized skills or like specialized skills. Anyone can learn them. Honestly, at the end of the day, anyone can learn those skills. You just have to have someone to teach you. But it's usually reserved for, like folks who are already seen everywhere. I think it's interesting to then take it back to like the flavor wheel. I think in my opinion, I liked it at first, like when I was like, oh, this exists, it's a thing, it helps me see or like conceptualize like this could be like potential on these things. But then so like when I was first starting to like actually like actively taste, I really liked that like visual to have. But then over time, I think learning more about how people perceive things and like also validating my own experiences, saying like, what you taste and what you feel is not wrong. It is very personal, right? And I don't think there's not a flavor wheel for that, right? There's not a flavor wheel for a personal experience or like even emotion or feeling. And I think it's interesting. I think, what am I trying to say? So I think there's value in the streamlining whatever and because that makes sense for like QC, for like green buying, for roasting, things like that, so people can speak that language. It's like more technical and things like that. But when it comes to general day-to-day consumers, like baristas, like people who are learning how to taste or like learning how to taste, we all know how to taste, we eat things every day. But like describing it, right? I think that people use it in a way where it's weaponized against like the people who are trying to learn, and so like tell them, no, like that's not on there, so it can't exist. Right. And I think I've seen that when I've gone to like my first few cuppings. It was so uncomfortable because I was like, what, the only person of color in that room. Also, just the fact that like there were, it was a lot of like, oh, I don't know. I don't think that that's on the wheel. So it doesn't really like, and I'm like, that's not expanding this curiosity for like what coffee can be and what this like community and like culture can be like. It's really just limiting it and saying like, no, you can't have a seat at the table because you don't deserve it because it's not on this thing. And I'm like, that's so uncreative, and it goes against everything that I believe about coffee. Because I'm like, no, coffee is communal, it's creative, it's colorful, it's so many, and you know, everyone has a very personal coffee story. And so I think when it comes to that, I like it, like the flavor wheel as like a tool, and like, you know, maybe something to refer back to, but not, and it just depends on the context of where it's used.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we go over the question one last time?
Yes. And then, you know what? I'll say the question, but it's kind of morphs. Like, I don't know if I answered my own question. So, okay. So my original question was like, how, when we're talking about like, you know, inclusivity in both the flavor wheel and in how we talk about coffee flavor, uh, how important do you think it is to include like all the coffees, or even like all of the types of experiences that you can have versus just sticking with specialty coffee and specialty coffee words to use as a guideline?
Okay. So this is what I think as it relates to this. I think the flavor wheel is and it can be useful, but I think there are situations you have like outlying situations. It's useful to me, and I know I mentioned this before speaking with Delvin. I mean, there are sometimes, you know, if I'm on the road, if I get ice cream and if I just get a coffee from, you know, from the gas station, and I get a Snickers bar, I can just throw it in there because it's going to give me what I want. I don't need to put cream in there. I don't need to put sugar in there. I can just get in the car and I'm good. I mean, there are times, you know, when we talk about specialty coffee, I have had those experiences where I go out and I buy a coffee, and my intent is to get a Twix bar or get something and put it in there and just say, hey, let's go. But after I sip that coffee, and I think Erica mentioned this earlier, it's all coming back. There was a Burundi, and I cannot remember the region right now. But after I tasted it, I'm like, I'm not going to just do anything to this. I don't need sugar in it. I don't need cream. I don't want cream. I just want to drink this the way it is because the taste of this coffee stands out so much so that it's just for me to appreciate. You know, and on the other hand, sometimes you drink something, I might have something that's black, and I just say, you know what? Let me try a little sugar. You know, this coffee may be bold enough that once I put a little sugar in here and I get a little cream in here, like it's still going to get the job done. You know, sometimes you just don't want to drown it out. I think with the Burundi, I felt as though I would have drowned out the flavor of that coffee. So I think when we're dealing with coffees that I, my personal opinion, feel like are really, really stand out, that may really have tea-like quality, and I want to appreciate that as I'm drinking, then I can hold off. But by the same token, if I just need to get the job done, if I'm at Dunkin' Donuts, or if I'm at a gas station, like, let's just, let's let it do what it does. So, I mean, I think in those instances, I just break it down to the coffees that typically people are going to like to have a little milk and sugar with, or they're going to want some flavor with, and you don't mind and you don't notice. And then when you have those exceptional situations where it's like, wait, this is different, then then we can kind of start to begin to categorize things. But all coffee, I don't think falls into necessarily a specialty category. Like all coffee, all coffees don't deserve that conversation. I mean, there's some that do, and it's personal preference, but you know, but you end up enjoying everything for what it is to a large degree, with me anyway.
And I think that's the beauty of it, right? Like what Ade just mentioned, I mean, it resonated with me so much. Like he's driving with some gas station coffee and he dumps a Snicker bar into the coffee. Like, yo, who does that? Right? I'm saying? But what it instantly reminded me of is like when I was a kid and I get a pickle and I stuff a Jolly Rancher in the pickle. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, I don't know who put Jolly Ranchers in their pickles. I did. So I was yeah. So it was just.
You are the
I'm
most
probably showing
black.
my age a little bit. I'm probably showing my age.
Can we read?
That's the most black thing I ever heard.
You feel me? Yeah. But I'm telling, like, that's what I'm saying though, and I think that's the point. Like, it's a cultural thing. You know what I mean? Like, when he just said, like, it never dawned on me to put a Snicker into my coffee. I would never do that.
Oh, excuse me. An ice cream Snickers bar at that.
Oh yeah, see what I'm saying? But it might taste good. Yeah, it might taste good. And so I think that's the point. Like culturally, like we're going to experience coffee a little bit differently. And the reason I think we don't, as a people, as a Black and brown people, we don't really consumers, let me say, because we are the ones producing the coffee. So as consumers, we haven't been marketed to or educated about specialty coffee. So I don't even know how to approach it. I don't even know what to do. I'm just drinking it, like, and then I just have to come from my own experience of it because I don't know where to begin. And like Corey, like KP said, like, she never heard of the flavor wheel before getting into specialty coffee. I look at the flavor wheel. I don't even know where to begin, where to start. I don't like, so, and I don't even really care. You know what I mean? Because all it's about is about my experience of what I'm tasting. And I have to be true to myself in that. And what I used to get caught up in a lot was, I'll be at these cuppings and I'll sit back because I don't really taste much because my palate is not unlocked like that, right? So I sit back and someone said, oh, it tastes like citrus or it tastes like this and like this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it does, and I'm just copying what somebody else said. But like, I'm not being true to what I really taste or how I really feel. And I'm embarrassed. I don't want to say embarrassed, but I feel uncomfortable saying that, oh, well, I didn't taste that at all. Like,
I feel that. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And so if no one else has a descriptor like I am imagining in my head, then I would rather say nothing. And I think that's where it needs to kind of change. You know what I mean? Because we experience coffee differently. Like I can put some geishas in front of my mom. I try to, be fancy with all these fancy coffees when I go and visit home. And she's like, yeah, I mean, it's good, but and then the next morning she's like, are you gonna make some Folgers? Like, like this geisha was cool, but I just need the coffee that I like. Like, I don't want all that, So Ade, you made a great point. I just think it's all about how we like to consume coffee. And that's the important part. And then we shouldn't be afraid to just describe it how we feel it tastes. So
That brings up a good point about how cultural, like tasting coffee or anything can be. Um, it makes me think that when you are tasting, like when you're tasting coffee in a professional setting, that that really makes it more important to have more diversity. Like obviously we all know diversity is needed and it's important in a lot of ways, but that's like a specific reason that you really need to have more people that are tasting different things in different ways. So you don't have, just like one person, because I've been that person too, like scared to say what's really on your mind because no one else is saying the thing. Like they're all saying the same thing and the things that you didn't experience. So yeah, man, just having more people at the table uh, is one way to make it more inclusive, just off the bat to start. Um, do y'all have like other ways in mind that you would make it easier for other people to speak up, like whatever is in their heart to say about the coffee they're tasting?
Well, I can kind of speak to this. So on what day was it? I don't know. It was a couple days ago. I did the cupping for these coffees, and Kat with Coffee People is staying with me right now, and so we did it together, and we ended up having this whole conversation. And I was like, this is the first time I've actually enjoyed a cupping because I've always done cuppings in like corporate settings or like shop settings, and I've never felt that I could like actually say what I was experiencing without it either being like laughed at or being told like, no, like there's no way you're tasting that. And we were just like sitting across from each other, and I just like gave myself permission to be like, all right, whatever comes to mind, I'm just gonna say it. And like Kat is way more experienced than me when it comes to tasting coffee. So it was really awesome to like be met with like when I said gushers, Kat was like, yeah, like there's fruit. Like Kat was helping me even define it further to just be like, all right, so this is my experience. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm tasting. And like what Erica said, when I said the like soft blanket thing, Kat mentioned that. Kat was like, okay, well, that's probably like the mouth feel that you're experiencing. I didn't have that language, but being able to pair it with somebody that did have that language, like once we were able to collide, it worked so well. So I think it's really a matter of like, one, as somebody who's like basically I just had to get out of my own way first and foremost. Then I had to know that I was going to be received and met where I was at, no matter what, and know that like, all right, this is a comfortable space. Granted, like that's not always the case everywhere, but I feel like if we all come to this table, no matter who it is, and we have an understanding of, hey, not all of us are on the same like point in our coffee journey, just like not all of us are at the same point in our journey in life. So I think it correlates a lot of like, yo, just meet people where they're at. Like, regardless if it's coffee, even if it's just life, like I'm not always gonna know the language. And hopefully by me saying, yeah, this feels like a soft blanket, I can be met with, okay, so then that's where we would say, this is the mouth feel. Or I say gushers, that's when I'm met with, okay, that's the fruitiness, and there's a reason for that. This is why. So having people of all like expertise levels being in at that table, I think is really important, because then it leaves room for, I get to learn something. Kat got to learn like, oh, whoa, like I didn't know you could even taste like through feel, like, cause Kat is a far thinker, I'm a far feeler. So we were meeting in the middle on a lot of areas. But yeah, that's what I think on that one.
You know what? Even when you say that, it's like meeting people where they're at. So no, you may not have the vocabulary. I might not have the vocabulary at the time to kind of express that. But even in meeting at that place, it's like, well, do you like it or do you not like it? Because it's like when you like it, it's like, well, yeah, it's like gushers, and then we can go further into detail about that. But it's like either I want to have more gushers right now or I don't, or I want this chocolate, this cocoa kind of feel, or I don't. So I think that even as we discuss and kind of continue to discuss further, it's like I do notice that there are certain things that I'm looking for. It's not always a brightness, all the time, and sometimes it's not always a fruity all the time. One thing I think over the past couple of months I've come to appreciate is the balance of coffee. Like you can be as bright as you want, but with that, once I've swallowed it, once it's gone down, if it leaves my mouth with a certain balance, I don't always need to have that aftertaste. So that I think that kind of sums it up for me. But do we like it or do we not like it? And when we do, like how far do we want to go from there? You know?
Hell yeah. Erica, I know you got thoughts.
Man, I always got thoughts. I'm just listening right now, but yeah, I think in order to make the flavor wheel more inclusive, or just making a more inclusive taste experience in general, I think everything that's been said so far is a must. I really loved seeing Bart cup with the people, just his like family or like his friends, with like ethnos, and like they got just one cupping bowl per person and they're just going in. I'm like, ooh, I ain't seen this before. Like, okay, like we got that new cupping, like let's go. And that's what worked for them, like we're just gonna get this one bowl per person because we don't want to share bowls, and then we're gonna like just taste this one bowl. So yeah, I think there needs to be stratification. There needs to be what's the word? There needs to be adaptations to cuppings, and there needs to be more offerings at different levels. So yeah, like, can we have these taste experiences in our homes with our families, like y'all have been talking about? Like, yeah, you're probably not going to give your grandma like the 92 lactic ferment gesha, but yeah, like, so like there's taste experiences in our homes, there's taste experiences like in cafes, and there's taste experiences in the coffee buying world. And I think they all have to be approached differently. So that's one thing to think about, just like to think about who do you want to share coffee with, and then where are they? Also, I think that, yeah, I had a very different experience than the ones that I'm hearing so far of being more like reserved in a cupping room and like not feeling like you can speak out. I had a very different experience where I was in a cupping room with like Southern white coffee bros who were nice dudes. They were like well-meaning, but my first couple cupping experiences, I was like, no, bro, like that's not in the cup. Like you're off. Like it's more like this. And so like I was actually the person at the gate being like, bruh, like that's whack. Your palate is whack. And I think that was good for me because I was in a white space, and like I needed to push that boundary, and I needed to be able to say like, this is what I'm tasting. And your palate is whack. Like I needed to be able to say that in that instance, but I've learned and I've matured, and yeah, I think that there's a way to be expressive. So like, I guess like my point to add to what's been said so far is be expressive, but don't shut anyone down, man. Like be expressive, try to listen, and try to like calibrate everyone. Like is there anything similar that we're tasting? And then how are the couple different ways to say that, instead of saying, no, like just your experience is invalid. I love what Marissa said, like a long time ago in the conversation about validating your own tasting experience. I think that's vital for sure.
I think that's so funny. The story about coffee breaths. I don't know. I'm laughing about that.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's kind of funny because my question then when I was hearing like, and I've been like experiencing those cuppings where people are all agreeing and you're sitting there like, I don't know what you're talking about. I wonder how much of that too is them agreeing with each other for validation, rather than just actually doing that for themselves, right? So I think that was something that when I was first doing like cuppings and things like that, I always wondered, because I know there are people out there who are very accustomed to fitting in or wanting to feel like they know what they're talking about. And so if they say like, oh, it tastes like this, oh yeah, man, I was tasting the same exact thing, blah, blah, blah. Like, are they learning and growing, or are they just agreeing because that's what's going to get them farther? And I wonder how much of that is rooted in like both like capitalism and like white supremacy and things like that, and like having that set of like seeing themselves already represented, right? And so that was what I've been thinking about for the past like however many minutes. But then I also think about like welcoming, or like to make the space more inclusive. I think it's also to just say like, hey, you know how to taste things, right? Like letting people know that they're capable. I think people doubt themselves, especially when they hear people say like things like, oh, I'm a super taster, or like what does that mean? You can be a super taster and not know how to taste coffee, right? And or like people are like, I don't know how to taste things, I don't know what this tastes like, I don't know what it smells like, whatever. And it's like, well, let's apply this to like food, right? What's your favorite food? Why do you like it? And start asking questions about the whys, breaking it down in a way that is more like accessible in some ways, because everyone has a favorite food or something like that, or can describe something if you ask them more about it. And I think it's interesting because if you start asking those questions, it won't be something from the flavor wheel typically. It's going to be more personal. So I think part of it is getting to know people and their experiences, and also definitely saying like, hey, you can do this. I believe that you can do it. And don't let anyone else tell you that you can't.
Yeah, I totally agree with Marissa. I think, to me, I feel like we can exclude the flavor wheel altogether for me,
Ooh, dangerous.
because like I don't need it, because I don't need an indicator or this thing to show me what I should be tasting. Like Marissa said, like I know how to taste. I've been tasting my whole life. So if I taste something, then that's what it is. Like I don't need some poster or flavor wheel to tell me like, oh, it should fall in this category. Like, nah, it don't. Like I don't see Jolly Rancher up there. I don't see Earth, Wind, and Fire up there. I don't see Warm Blanket up there. Like I don't see what I feel. So I don't need that to kind of steer me away from what I initially felt. And so for me, I've never used in cupping. I've never used a flavor wheel. I've never, tried to, because it's like, that doesn't correlate or relate to me. So I'm going to taste or describe what I think it tastes like. And yeah, so I agree with you, Marissa, wholeheartedly on that.
Okay. Yeah,
Great questions, by the way.
Thanks. It's really based off of y'all, what I hear y'all saying. So great commentary, y'all. Yeah, I was taking notes while y'all were talking, because like y'all said some stuff that I did not think of. So that's awesome, man. Like those are all like really, because like, and it's so easy for me to get caught in my own head of what I think, things should be, which is exactly what I'm trying to avoid and caution others against. Like, don't make it be only what you think it should be. Because in my head, I was like, yeah, have different people at the table, but y'all, man, nailed it down so much more specifically, and like got a greater variety of ways that like all this can be more inclusive. So man, I love this. Something that I thought of in one of y'all answers where you're talking is, I'm wondering now if when we're cupping with other people, should it be, do we need to have like our own like base level of self-knowledge and self-exploration before we gradually move up to cupping like with like at a certain I don't know, level of like when y'all are like green bean importers, equatorial, like when we reach that level, or when you are choosing coffees for your business, or choosing like how to profile and roast coffees, do we need to like ourselves have a certain level and then be up there, or is there like is there wiggle room for us to just, you start from this and then, or start from nothing, like no coffee experience, like say I never tried coffee, to I want to start roasting coffee, can I just like start training at this level? Does that even make sense?
You
I
know
think
what? I mean, I'm thinking about this. I've thought about this, and I'm hearing you as you're asking the question. I think that having a foundation doesn't hurt, especially when you're looking to have conversation around coffee, because I, in my experience, you can say a lot by just being able to identify, language, certain language around certain types or certain type of flavors. So when you, so let's say we say something like, I tasted the Sadamo, and I taste it, and it has like, there are certain tea-like qualities that I taste in that coffee. So automatically, I'm not nailing it down per se, but you have an idea like, oh, this is a more tea-like. Somebody else may say that, but they may say, yeah, like, more like, like a chamomile, or they may say, or I say something that's a little more minty. I mean, we can be in the same ballpark, but we're moving in the same direction when we say that. So I think it's helpful. I think initially, and I know when we really got into it and started tasting coffee, Devlin and I, it's like, you get down and you get in front of people, and the first thing you want to be able to identify is, do you like it or do you not like it? And then how far can you go? Um, how well are you able to explain what it is that you're tasting? Because the better able you are to explain that, the more people you're able to include in that conversation on some level or the other. I noticed when Marissa, no, I said, yeah, no, Marissa, I'm sorry. Marissa said something, and KP said something, but KP was talking specifically about gushers. And I believe the young lady's name was Kat. So she heard what you said, and she says, "Okay, this becomes fruity." Now, when KP goes and has another conversation, and she tastes something along those lines, depending who you're in the room with, depending on who you're having a conversation or how you're having a conversation, you may say, "You know what? It tastes a little fruity here. I noticed something here. What else do you happen to notice?" Because when you taste certain things, the fruit may not always click. But when somebody says apple, you're like, well, I do kind of taste that in the back of my mouth, or I taste this on the side of my tongue. It kind of hits me, it might hit you a little bit differently. So I think it's just about having the conversation and being able to, being open to having the conversation. Obviously, you need a starting point, but I don't think that, being able to be descriptive or being able to have those words is it's never going to hurt.
Mhm.
Right. And just to add on to what Ade is saying, like as importers, we don't know what a customer or a client will like. Like I have no clue. Like, I can assume that they might like this Ethiopian or this Kenyan or this Colombian or this Guatemalan or this Honduran, but I don't know, you know, and it's not really up to me to tell them what they like. It's up to them to decide once they taste it, like, yo, I like this one, I like that one. So our job is not really to expect the client or the new entry person to come into the coffee game and have a foundation to meet us. Like, we really need to lower our thing down to them. They're the consumer. You know what I mean? So this isn't from our perspective as importers. Like, we need to bring our level down to the consumer to know, like, well, what do you like? Like, what do you want to spend your money on? Because this is your money. This is not mine. I can't tell you what you should be buying. Like, you like the Jordan ones, like, that's what you're gonna get. You know what I mean? Because that's what you want. I can't try to sell you some K Swiss or some Stan Smiths if you don't want those. You know what I mean? Because you don't want those. Like, you want an Ethiopian, you don't want a Colombian. So I can't force feed this Colombian down your throat if you don't want that. And so I would say, to answer your question, just to add on to what Ade is saying, is that for us, it's about making sure we know the preferences of our clients and what they like, you know, and when we begin to sell roasted coffee and go straight to consumer, then it's about what the consumers like. Like, I have to go off that. If I want my business to be successful, I have to do and provide what the customer likes, and I have to know that. You know what I mean? So our job as importers is to know, like, what our clients like, and I gotta bring myself down. I might have all the knowledge in the world, but if I feel like there's a client that's not as knowledgeable, but I still want him or her as a client, then I'm gonna have to do whatever it is they want to do because I want them as a client. So it's not up to me, it's up to them. So I would say that we have to bring ourselves down to, or to the level of who we're cupping with and who we're selling the coffee to. Because that's, you know, like the old artist says, like, the customer is always right. I mean, at the end of the day, the customer is pretty much always right because they're spending their money on what they want to spend it on. Now, it is up to us, if we're supplying that, to provide them to kind of have a future vision of what we think that they may need before they know they need it, right? But if we are wrong in that, then it's on us to backtrack and make sure that we get that right. You know, we can assume that they're right and try to say, okay, yo, the people are gonna love this P&G. Like, we're gonna hit it, they're gonna love it. But if they don't, it's kind of like, okay, whoa, let's reel that back in. They don't love it. You know what I mean? What's next? Because they don't like that. So I wouldn't say that they have to meet us or have a foundation to meet where we are. We have to go down to where they are. And I think that's the problem, because most people enter specialty coffee and they feel bad or uncomfortable because they're not as knowledgeable or they're not as this, and they feel like they don't belong. And it's like, well, you shouldn't feel like that because you're the consumer. Like, you should feel however, you know, you should feel comfortable in tasting or shopping wherever you want to go shop. You know, if you feel uncomfortable shopping in a place, then you're not going to go to that place anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, because you don't feel comfortable spending your money there. So you're not going to go. You know what I mean? So I just think we have to, as suppliers or as importers, we have to be mindful of that and make sure we're coming to the level of our client. Sometimes the client is above our level. So we do have to go above. I know I've experienced that numerous times. So.
Okay.
I really appreciate that vulnerability at the end, Delvin. That was cool. You don't hear people out here saying that kind of stuff, so I appreciate that a lot. What Delvin in our day. I feel like what y'all are saying is in the same line of what Marissa has been saying about like, validation. Do you like a coffee or not? That's really important. And if you want to explain, you know, the reasons why you like that coffee or not, that kind of depends on where you are and what you're tasting that coffee for. Because like I'll contextualize for me. Like I can't go up in like the Onyx cupping room and be like, hood slurps, you know, like this slaps, you know, like yeah, like, or it doesn't slap, you know, like they're not gonna get that. But they're in a different culture, right? They're in a different space, and their business has a certain niche. And so the way I think about everything we've said so far is like thinking about this concept of palate development. So Nikki, going back to the question, you're like, do I need to have this certain amount of palate development in order to be a green coffee buyer, be a roaster, be X, Y, Z? And I think it depends on your market. And I think it depends on who you want to interact with, because the people who are drinking Folgers every day have this certain language, and the people who are drinking Geshes every day, you know, or anaerobics or carbonic macerations every day, they have a totally different language, right? So, and so like I've learned that, this is going back to something that Marissa said, I've learned that calibrating to your company and calibrating to your friends and calibrating to the industry, those are all different levels of flavor experiences and language. And so when I got on the competition scene and I had cupped with, you know, my coffee bros, bringing them back in, Marissa, when I had only cupped with the coffee bros down in Birmingham, Alabama, and then I started cupping with people from all over on the competition scene, I was just like, whoa, like this is what y'all are doing out here. Like, like, okay, I gotta come up, or, you know, I gotta like figure out a way to like interact in this space. So, you know, the level of coffee bro went up, you know, and I could either like keep like using the same language that I was using, or I could start integrating. And if we're going to make a parallel to culture, you know, I could start assimilating, you know, into that system. So yeah, I think it just depends on who you want to interact with and where you want to go. Like if I want to talk to Cat and Cloud or Verve or you know, any like super well-known high up specialty roaster or people in the buying world, like I have to speak that language or there's not understanding. I have to already have like tasted a bunch of coffees, or like I just don't know how to communicate and be in that world. But if your goal is just to like be with people and like grow, like Marissa was saying, like are people out here trying to grow, then like not like your palate is what it is, and you just learn by cupping with and being with other people. Like and actually that goes back to like what KP was saying, like KP tasting with Kat, now like they're gonna build on that, you know, and now like they're exchanging language and they can interact in different ways with different people. So I don't think like everyone, it's like Marissa said, like everyone can taste, everyone can start, and then like depending on where you go is like, or want to go, like that's going to influence the language that you start building. So yeah.
You know, I wanted to just say one thing quick, because after that question from Nikki, I just want to read you a description, okay, what somebody may look for, right? And this is actual, like what somebody says. They're saying they're looking for a total fruit bomb, Could be blueberry, strawberry, Concord grape, mango, pineapple, as long as the fruit hits you in the face from the moment you open the bag until the last sip. Now, okay, now you're on a mission. So now you have to go find that. Hopefully you've already come across it. And I'll read you one more, and then that'll be that. But and then another one is we're looking for a balanced coffee, okay, with a medium to full body, and notes of spice, chocolate, caramel, and or dried fruit. So it's like, yeah. So they say these things, and I mean, and it's very real. Like, this is not like, you don't know what you want. It's like, no, this is, you're looking for something specific. So when you come across that, that's what you want to present people with, as far as what it is that they want. I think that's what Delvin is talking about also, and that may be a roaster. When you're dealing directly to consumers, when people know what they want, they just know what they want. They like it, and that's great. But if you're dealing with, it depends on who you're dealing with. And if you're dealing with a roaster, with a specialty roaster, it's like, you got to hit it on the head, or you want to. You want to hit it on the head. You obviously want to hit it on the head as many times as you can. But
and even with our day, with these descriptions and these requests that we receive, right? I still don't know. Like, I still got to give you 2 or 3 different samples to let you decide what's the fruit bomb. Like, I don't know what that is for you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the Kenyan or the Ethiopian or what it is. Like, only you know that. So I'm going to give you a few coffees to let you play with, so you can decide which one is which. Because if I just give you one and it's not the fruit bomb that you're looking for, then you're just gonna be like, yo, that's not the fruit bomb I'm talking about. Like, where is this and where is that? And I'm like, okay, all right, so I got it wrong. So I'm gonna have to give you 2, 3, 4 options to let you decide what's the fruit bomb is. You know what I mean? Like, so you can buy it pretty much. Right. So
think of,
that's a great example. I'm glad you mentioned that, man. So
yeah, it makes me think of like as a video editor, or like other like people I know in the freelance game, working with clients that have like these specific requests, and you get like various level of requests, y'all know. It just be like crazy ranges. Like, this person's like using all the jargon, maybe in the right way, maybe the wrong way, and then someone else is like just using descriptors like, I don't know what you want. I don't know what that means. So yeah, that's interesting. And it brings me back to like exactly what Erica just said about being able to calibrate. There's different like levels of calibration you gotta keep in mind depending on what group you're working with. Yeah, that's interesting. Marissa, I'm curious, like, because you were saying earlier that like the way to be more inclusive is like let people know that they're capable, and basically like ask deeper questions and get to know people. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on like whether that means that like, do you think that someone should have like a certain level of like, do people need to build up to cope with the experienced pros or whatever, or do those people need to work with the people who have never like cupped or tasted before?
I think it's really complex. I also think it's really simple. And the reason why I say this is I think that there's 2 kind of sides to this, right? Because I think there are people who somehow end up in these roles of like roaster or green buyer who have no experience cupping or tasting and doing stuff like that. They just have the confidence and the means and the money to be like, hey, I'm going to do this, so I'm going to do it, right? And I think looking at that to me is really frustrating. Just how I feel about that. And the reason why is because they don't respect the coffee that they're like about to roast and how it's going to taste and how, and that's a general statement. Maybe they do. I don't know. But like, it's this idea of like, I can just do this and I don't have to have any like base level, whatever. I can just do it because I've seen other people do it. And I think that lacks intention and quality and time spent with that product. and like not only the product, but like the cultures and the people who like bring that to them to create, right? I think that having the base level of, yes, you know how to taste, you can do this, right? But then building off of it, kind of like what Erica was saying, like with like just like, what are you doing with it? Like, what is your intention? What are your goals for this? Like, is it just like you want to grow with like your community and things like that? Then yes, like I think that there's a soft way to approach it and like build that confidence. And I think that that is really important when you're first learning, right? I think over time, there's also this idea of like, yes, you can develop your palate, like learn more things, like taste things and do that. And kind of like it's like a literal language, right? You're gaining that knowledge and words and vocabulary to then like put it together. And like you wouldn't start writing like a long like poem without knowing the alphabet. I think, or like knowing different structural things about that, right? And it's like, I think it's important to build that confidence, especially if you don't see yourself represented like in like these spaces. But then over time also saying like building curiosity, and it's like how can we taste more, right? Because I think that, and asking more questions. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think I think I get really like frustrated sometimes, like when I see people who are just like, I'm just gonna decide to do this, and then I'm like, but then you're not treating the coffee like with the intent and the like and everything. Like if you just buy like a 90 like 90 grade scoring coffee and then it's just like you don't know anything about it, I think then that's disrespectful to like the entire process as a whole and like the artistry of it. So I think that there's like complex kind of things with it, because I also know, like for example, there's like some roasters down where I am, and I've just heard like the roaster, for example, like looked up how to roast via like Reddit, right? And had been asking like this thing. And I'm like, you are only able to do that because like this is like a wealthy white man who owns this company. And I'm like, if it was, and I just think that that to me shows so much not understanding what coffee as a culture looks like. So I think that there should be like in that way, it's like if you're at that like point or whatever, you should know at least how to speak that language and like know how to taste. I think it, and going along that, it just it like in some ways it's like in my mind, it's like if you're American and you go somewhere else, you expect someone else to speak English. That doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, I don't understand like why that's a thing, right? So in that way, it's like I think that there should be like acquisition of that language, but then also if you're in community, like at a base level, being able to say like, yes, you can do this, and let's help support one another to get there. If that makes any sense. I don't even know. I feel like I went off on like this thing and I'm like, I don't know what I'm talking about. Also, when you're talking about the freelancing stuff, I get that because I like my background is like design work, right? And so I have like freelance clients, and then I think half the time they think that they know what they want, but they don't actually know what they want. And the reason why is because they're like seeing all these things and they're like, okay, so I want you to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, cool, but why? And so I always go back to the questions of like, why? Like, how does that make you feel? Like all these different things to then get to the root of what they actually want and then bring out something hopefully better.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay.
No, Marissa, don't gaslight yourself. You know what you're saying. This should actually be the Marissa show, because bro, like just like straight facts and truth. I'm blown away. Like that's all so very good and so well said. For sure. Like the whole money thing. Like, all right, so like going back to palate development, and like me personally, in my experience, when I got out here, I had these like head judges being like, oh, you're good, like you're great. And I had a lot of encouragement. And then like, they're like, yeah. And also like, you need to be like tasting coffees across a range. Like this is what you need to do. And I'm like, cool, how am I gonna do that? You know, like coffee costs money, coffee costs time, you know, like I don't have all that money. So how am I gonna get out here and taste all these coffees? Which, you know, is a part of a point of like what we did together, right? Like supporting Black businesses, supporting ourselves as people of color, as women, and like, yeah, like tasting these coffees together. That's important. So yeah, like palate development for sure is based on money. And like getting to these higher up positions for sure, like it's all like money. So yeah, like how can we support people who want to grow? So yeah, like, that's like really important. And then man, the whole like Americans going somewhere analogy, like that's really important too, because that goes back to what Equatorial was saying about customer interactions. Thank you for reading those descriptions. That's like super helpful real life stuff right there. Like a lot of like sharing coffee experiences is also interpreting. So it's like, you want a fruit bomb? All right, yeah. What does that mean to you? You want caramel nutty, whatever, like, what does that mean to you? You want like funky, I don't know. Like, so like, and the only way that you can know more so what someone is meaning is by having more experience. So yeah, I think like going back again to the question, Nikki, like, I think that you do have to have certain levels of palate development in order to do certain things in the industry. But how do we get education? How do we get accessibility? Like, how do we get people those things who want to get to those places? Because like, yeah, for someone who right now is drinking Maxwell House at home, but they want to be a roaster one day, like, how do you get them from point A to point B? And that journey can look very different based on like what your client base is. So anyways.
Yeah.
I'll piggyback off of that a little bit because I've just been thinking.
Hi,
like,
Katie, I miss you.
Hi. I've been thinking like, obviously it's not this like you jump from point A to point Z and that's just how it works. Like I'm thinking about it even in terms of like educational, like in the education system, like you don't automatically become a doctorate. So it's like you gotta put in the work. You gotta lay some kind of groundwork in order to enter into whatever you want to study. And I also think, it's no matter, like culturally, everybody has either advantages or disadvantages, privileges or not. And as people of color, like typically we're at a disadvantage. We're over here like, all right, well, how can I access those coffees in order to expand my palate? How can I like do all of these things? And I'm thankful that like now we do have, entities like Get You Some Gear that make it possible to even let's go get you some gear sweatshirts that make it possible. Like for instance, I could never cup. Like the only reason I have cupping equipment is because of Get You Some Gear. So it's like even in terms of being able to taste. So let's say, yeah, you've got the coffee, cool. Do you have what you need in order to adequately brew and in order to adequately cup? Like all of these things. So there's so many layers to this that it's like a lot of it is accessibility too. It's like, okay, now when I think like, I said the other day, I was like, I'd love to just like roast just one time, just to like say I did it kind of thing. Well, I already have a running list of Black roasters that I will reach out to because I know I don't have to go through a bunch of red tape to do anything. Like I can literally say like, yo, I want to try this. I know that you had to like jump a lot of hurdles to get to even where you are. What is like, tell me your story. And I'm thankful that I'm in a position in coffee where I can literally write a story about them, but also just for my own, like there aren't these easy pathways for us. So it's like, we're often kind of thinking like, okay, if I'm told I need to do better in this arena, well then how do we bridge these gaps? And for me, it's a lot of, let's make sure that people have the resources. Let's make sure people know about GoFundMe. Let's make sure people know about Get You Some Gear. Let's make sure people know that there are these options and resources in order to all right, you want to become a roaster, you want to, whatever it is, whatever your goal is, thankfully now there are people in place to help you get there. But before, I didn't know about any of this. So it's I do worry that there are people that say they do want to, they want to leave home brewing, they want to go into the coffee industry, they want to be a barista, this and that their fear is going to hold them back because it's not publicized that all of this is available. Because I only know about all of these resources because I'm integrated in the industry. So thankfully I can talk with people. If I just meet people, I'm able to kind of hand that off word of mouth. So I do think I take that as a personal responsibility of, this is the knowledge that I have, let me pass this on to my people. But I mean, yeah, the industry is growing with people of color, but I just don't think that it's widely publicized yet that, hey, there's access, there is accessibility, if you're in it. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's I do believe it's possible to get to whatever level you want to get to, but it's a matter of education. And I think that groundwork is important, but also that groundwork's not possible unless accessibility is there. So it's that whole both and very layered.
Mm-hmm. Damn, y'all. Gems, dropping gems. Yeah, a lot of y'all are talking about, especially I think Marissa and Erica hopped on this. You were talking about calibrating. That reminds me of teaching. I feel really good teachers are able to calibrate, aka translate certain things. And to be a good calibrator, translator, y'all Devlin and Ade, you got to do, and to be a good teacher, you have to know a lot of stuff. Basically, you either, I guess there's to me, in my mind, there's two different kind of teachers: the kind that knows how to listen and the kind that knows a lot. The best one is the one that can do both. So yeah, that does to be that kind of person, to be a resource, an ideal type of resource, being able to calibrate to other people at whatever level, meeting them where they're at, meeting people where they're at is a skill. It's definitely a skill. And it's not always one, you can have a natural inclination towards being able to do that, but it does require, knowledge of a certain level. Yeah, man, y'all, I want to open it up a little bit. If y'all have any final thoughts you want to share about this whole either flavor wheel or just being more inclusive, how we can uplift and support each other, anything like that. Floor.
I had something, as you say that, as far as being more inclusive or the flavor wheel, I think we talked about calibrating also. And I'm thinking about something that Erica was saying, and really I think everybody touched on one way or the other. This has been a good week because with all these coffees, it's I like to drink some things by myself, but sometimes I might go to a shop and have a conversation. I mean, it opened things up. But I learned a lot about a couple shop owners' palates, which typically I wouldn't really know, but just by, sometimes you want to put coffee in front of people, but I think you have to just step back, and just listen to what people like or what they say or what their experience has been, and kind of take it all in. And Delvin says that a lot of times with me. He's it's about the relationships and then it's I hate to use this. I don't hate to use this word, but it's like, some things just have to be organic, and sometimes they're not. But it's like you sit down and you have a conversation. So what happened this week was, even with the espressos, with the Burundi from On the Go, and Black Nerd Coffee with the Sadamo. It's like, I tried the espresso, and then the shop owner comes back and says, "Hey, look, this is what I've got." So I'm like, "Okay, what do you have?" And they had a dark roast, but that was a Mexican coffee. Okay, so they put their espresso down. I was like, "All right, let me try it." And when I tried it, let me tell you something. There's no way I would ever put the Burundi and the Sadamo in front of this person. Like, I wouldn't do it. It's not what they're looking for at all. It's not what they like. And it's but the only way to do that is to be in a place where I say, okay, this is what I like. Why don't you try this? And to get the feedback that says it, but it's not pushback. It's just like, this is particularly what I'm interested in. And so it kind of broadened my perspective. And going forward, when I taste that coffee again, when I taste that darker roast, when I have an idea of what somebody's looking for, you're able to have a different type of conversation, and you're able to appreciate something different, because the people taste different things, obviously. So I mean, but as far as being inclusive, I just think that being able to go back and have certain conversations and sit down with people, it helps you to really get to know people. Sometimes people don't always distinguish um, each other based on um, gender or race, but sometimes it's just, your experience. Can we relate? Can we have a conversation? Can we get to a place where we can have a conversation? And I think that's telling, but rewarding at the same time. Very rewarding once you cross that bridge. So, all right.
Yeah, I would say, like, I just appreciate um, what you're doing, Nikki, with the creating the content you're creating online, including us in this event. Like, it's I just think more of that is needed throughout the industry. What get you some gear did in the pandemic, I think was so dope. Just giving people the opportunity, and financially, and perspective wise, or highlighting or spotlighting those of us who are out in the industry doing great work. And I think that was so dope. And like Coffee People Zine, I talked to KP about this, but like, yo, what the magazine is doing, and allow me to, like, or us to create stories and do these little things that we did in the Coffee People Zine, but just how you highlight and spotlight people throughout your issues as well. I just think all of us, we're all contributing in a certain way. And as more people of color enter the market or into the industry, you will, it's bound for the industry to kind of take a new shape and a new form. And it's going to create something new out of the industry. Like we're talking about today about the flavor wheel. Like, it just has to change. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's just the reality, because more cultures are entering the market and have an importance and has a say. And so the more we do this, the more we, share ideas and share thoughts, new things are discovered and new things arise. And so I just say continue doing what you guys are doing. Continue being an inspiration for us. As importers, we just love to see, um, like, our mission is kind of highlighting and spotlighting the farmers. And so we just love to see how much you all spotlight the brands and the roasters and, like, the poets, and Nikki be dropping bars. You know, I keep telling her she has to rhyme. She need a little EP. She drop bars. She gets on the acoustic guitars. You know, she's just doing it all. And so all of this is like creativity in the coffee industry. It's all new and it's fresh. And like soon the industry will be coming to us for this innovation and this creativity, you know, because that's what people of color do. You know what I mean? That's what we bring to every industry. And that's just a fact. I mean, I think the coffee industry will start to see that. I think they're seeing it already, you know, like just look at the explosion of merch. Like, man, everybody has dope merch. And it's like right here, right here. Like you representing A-Bar and anti-gentrification, right?
Hey,
Get
okay.
you some gears popping. I dare you got the hoodie from Not Caffeinated Enough. Like you see no free coffee. Like the whole thing is like merch. You know what I mean? And it's just good to see us taking the industry to another level. And I think we're just getting started. And I think we'll start to see more and more of that as we go on. So I'm just glad that we can be a part of it, man. That's our whole thing. We just, you know, we're suppliers and we like to be in the background, but we're just glad to be a part of this stuff, man, and see other people shine. That's all it's really about for us. So thank you guys. I mean, you women, ladies, once again.
I think even like speaking to that though, like that's what's so beautiful and important is that like we're having these conversations and it's giving like the full spectrum of the coffee industry. It's not just, you know, baristas talking. It's not just roasters. It's we're trying to make sure that people know that like it is important to know the full process from the hands that it comes from to the hands that roast it to the hands that like every exchange that's happening is that's what's important because it's all people of our community. And I think like that's what's just so beautiful to me is that we are having these full communal conversations that aren't targeted at just this one portion of the industry, but we're very, very centered on okay, how can we do better in supporting farmers? How can we do better in supporting suppliers? How can we do better in supporting like literally that's what our focus is how can we do better on supporting the full spectrum of our community? Because we know like that's the only way that we survive. That's the only way that we thrive is when we feed back into each other and we're like, all right, cool. Like what's next? Like this is just how it goes. So I do like definitely thank you, Nikki. Like I'm like, just keep doing this because it's important. Like it's important to have these conversations to show that we are all of various walks of life and in different parts of the industry, but these conversations are possible no matter what part of the industry you fall. So that's my like overall thought is that like ultimately, I think it's these conversations that just have to keep occurring because they matter.
And KP, we need the coffee rings and the coffee chains. All that too.
No, they come.
Start getting that thing happening. We need all that.
I appreciate it. I am working on some coffee designs. So yes.
Dope.
And I think a couple of weeks ago, I just want to say this briefly, but I know a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was a couple of months ago, Nikki. I mean, I was looking and I would see a lot of the stuff that you had done. I think we may have corresponded once or twice written, but I think at one point I just picked up the phone or I don't know what it was and ended up calling. And I know it was like, who is this? Like, this is so random. Like, what do you want? But I mean, you feel sometimes things resonate and I'm looking and because I'm hearing people say it now and I just can't leave this out, but I'm looking at what you're doing. And I think I mentioned that on the phone call that day, but I can appreciate the direction that it's going in. And like Delvin said, also like, thanks for including us. Like everybody, I know that, things work out the way they work out, but and I appreciate, just being a part because I think what you're doing and what we're doing overall is really, and the way you're going about doing it, Nikki, is really, it's really unique. So thanks.
Thank you. Erica, Marissa, do y'all have any compliments you want to give me? Or
You know, Erica ain't gonna give you a compliment.
Sam, you ready for a compliment? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, for sure. Nikki, man, this work is so important. And what you're doing,
really compliment me.
yeah, I will actually. Yeah, like what you're doing comes for me on the after like 2 seasons of me being on the competition scene and seeing what's happening there. And the work that you're doing is like, it's so important, because the more that people see people that look like them, the more they're going to be like, yeah, I can do that. Like, I'm only still in this thing because I see people like Michelle Johnson and Tamika Lawrence, like out here, Christina Jackson, like I see them out here killing it. And that's why I'm out here. So the way that we're going to culturalize the flavor world, the way that we're going to culturalize the industry is by us having us and being like, yo, we out here. You know, like way earlier, the point was made that we're not marketed to you when it comes to coffee, when it comes to coffee, period, even commodity. But like, let alone specialty. And, you know, Phyllis Johnson and Kiva, Red Bay did this podcast all on that, and how there's this huge like market that we haven't tapped into that's specifically Black. So yeah, with these like super Black brands being out here now, it's just gonna get Blacker from here. It's just gonna get more thin from here. I'm having like more conversations with my like AAPI colleagues and Indigenous colleagues, and it's happening. But we're at a very like crucial building stage, because the last like competition season we were in was probably the most encouraging, just because it's like, oh shoot, like there's literally like 20 plus Black people in this room, and there were no people on the competition scene before that. So we're getting there. It's slow. Keep doing what you're doing, Nikki. Like, keep doing what you're doing, and like, we're with you, and we need this. So thank you. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you giving us this space and time, and it's gonna get better from here for sure.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you for this time and space. I don't know, I had a really good time talking to everyone here and meeting everyone virtually. I think also it's really interesting how like the virtual world right now has really given a lot more room for opportunity to like connect and talk to people like across like our country and then across the world. So seeing that has been really cool. I think these conversations are really definitely needed, and I think the coffee world is going to be better for it, especially when we know that we're here for one another and not trying to like gatekeep or knock each other down. I think all these things to make everything better starts with community and conversations. So having this space to do just that is really amazing. So thank you so much for organizing this and putting it all together.
Dope. Yeah. I'm really glad y'all could be a part of this. I think I said not that long ago that every time I talk to someone interested in coffee, I learned something new. And I definitely learned something new from all y'all. So that's much appreciated. My final comment is, like at the very beginning of this, when we were talking about the coffees that we all tried, Marissa, you said big booty piece of cake. And I think that should be on the flavor wheel. If nothing else changes, that should be there. Yeah. With that, that's it. Y'all, thank you again so much for being a part of this. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'll see y'all again on the flip side. Somewhere else. Not too far from now. Yeah.
Sure. For sure.
Go get that big booty cup of coffee. Go put
Yeah.
a Snicker in your coffee. Try that pickle and Jolly Rancher. I'm telling you.
The Jolly Rancher and pickle thing, I think it actually sounds really good. I was thinking about it. I'm like, I love acidity from pickles, and I like sour candy Jolly Ranchers. So I'm gonna go try that.
There you go.
Thanks.
There you go.
But thank you guys. I appreciate it.